This question starts off by asking you to recognise that it's about the length of time in hours that adults watch TV. So we need to remember how to interpret this table. So the table's telling us that 8 adults watch television between 0 and 10 hours, not telling us exactly how long each of them did, but they just between 0 and 10, and 15 people between 10 and 15 and so forth. The question says work out an estimate for the mean. So we've got it's the mean length of time. Then we need to remember that the mean is going to be the total time for all adults divided by the number of adults, because basically the mean average is wanting how much per adult, so it's total time divided by the number of adults will give us how much per adult. So if we want to get the total time, well, we don't know exactly how long each of these 8 people watched, so we have to estimate it. That's why it's called estimating the mean, and we tend to do that by adding on an extra column to do some calculations with the midpoint of the interval times the frequency f. So there's the frequency, and then we want the midpoints. Well, the midpoint of 0 and 10 is going to be 5. Midpoint in the middle, add the 2 numbers up and halve them, so 5, and then we're times them by the frequency, so 40, and then we just continue doing that, finding the midpoint of 10 and 15, so 12.5, and then we times that by 15, get an answer. Midpoint of that 17.5, times them by 11, midpoint of that 25, times by 10, midpoint of that 40, times by 10, so it's a calculator paper, so use your calculator to limit mistakes. Excuse me. So I've got 17.5 times 11, 25 times 10, 40 times 10. And then we need to add up all of these, because these are our estimates of the hours that each the groups watched. So 400 plus 250 plus 192.5 plus 187.5 plus 40 equals. So we've got a total time, when we've added these up, of 1070 hours. And the question told us there were, adding up the frequencies here, we can find out how many adults there were. So 23, 33, 34, 53, 59. Check that again. 23, 24, 34, 44, 50. Let's check that again. 16, 27, 37, 42, 50. Okay, so we're going to divide this by 50. So divide by 50 equals 21.4 hours. So we've estimated that on average the adults will watch this television for 21.4 hours. The question goes on and talks about working through the histogram. So when we draw a histogram, then we've got to check what the word means, histogram, and it tells us that we've got to use the frequency density, because that's what we do to plot a histogram. So we need the frequency density formula. So the frequency density formula is going to be the frequency divided by the class width, so in other words the width of each of the intervals. So the easiest thing to do is go back to the table and add on another column, frequency density, and we go through, and the frequency density, remember, is the frequency divided by the class width. So this is 8 divided by 10, so 0.8, and then we've got 15 divided by 5, so 15 divided by 5. Each time we're doing the frequency divided by the interval width, so 11 divided by 5, and then we've got 10 divided by 10, and then we've got 6 divided by 20. So 6 divided by 20 is the same as doing 3 divided by 10, so 0.3. Okay, so those are our frequency densities. Our largest one is 3, and our smallest one is 0.3. So we've got to come up with a sensible scale for the graph. So as it wants to go up to 3, then I can see quite quickly that if I put 1 there, 2 there, 3 there, then I've got a nice even scale going up where each little square is worth 0.1 label, so that's the frequency density, and we can now plot our bars. So the first one that had a width of 10 and goes up to 0.8. So we literally just go through plotting each of those then. So up to 0.8 and a width of 10. Obviously you guys will use rulers, but I'm just sketching this quickly. So, and the next one said we had to go between 10 and 15 and up to 3. So 10 to 15 and up to 3. And then the next one said we had to go between 15 and 20 and up to 2.2. And then the next one says we had to go between 20 and 30 and up to 1. And then the next one says we had to go from 30 to 50 and up to 0.3. So be careful, it said 30 to 50, so you must stop the bar at 50 and don't go over there, because there's nothing about what happened between 50 and 60. So we took each of the frequency densities, we looked at the width of each interval, and then we plotted the bars accordingly. So that's how we would go about drawing a histogram. And then the histogram would have this kind of shape, frequency density up this side, and along the bottom the actual variable that you're dealing with. Now, as always, when you think you finished a question, you should go back and check that you haven't made any silly mistakes. So let's just check the estimated mean. That seems quite high. Most of the data is kind of in the middly area, so we would have expected the answer somewhere around here. It's actually gone into that interval, so this would suggest that maybe there's something wrong with this calculation. So let's just check. We did the midpoint times the frequency. So midpoint of that interval was 5 times 8 is 40, 12.5 times 15, 17.5 times 11, 25 times 10, 40 times, ooh, that was 6, not 10. So that was 6, and 40 times 6 was 240. So that means our total will be wrong. Okay, so we'll do another check of adding up. So 40 plus 187.5 plus 192.5 plus 250 plus 240 equals, so 910. So that means our calculation here should have been 910 divided by 50. So 910 divided by 50, 18.2. That makes more sense. Okay. So again, it's really important that when you think you finished a question, go back and check. Just check it through and make sure it makes sense. That 21.4, when you look at it again, was a little bit high. It was over here somewhere in the data, and a lot of the data was below that value, so it seemed too high. So we went through and checked and realised that I put that 10 there rather than the 6 it should have been. So then we go through and do that calculation again, and we find we get a more reasonable answer. 18's in here, and it is roughly somewhere in the middle because of the data distribution. So it's worth checking. Okay guys, so that's estimated mean and drawing a histogram by using the frequency density formula.